Good luck to me. No more spending on raising kids. Let's end our marriage. I was completely surprised when John suddenly said these words while we were getting ready for a funeral. I knew he was selfish, but this was even worse than I could have imagined. I want to marry someone, but she doesn't want kids. If Charlie is still alive, I'll keep losing money on child support and medical bills, right? Oh, what a relief. It felt terrible that this man was Charlie's father, but I agreed to the divorce. My mind cleared, but inside I was boiling. I agreed to the divorce. Yeah, then I'll take the house, so leave as soon as possible. Just wait until the funeral's over. Fine with that. John left on the day of the funeral. I read Charlie's will. Jane turned pale while relatives glared at him with fierce faces. It was time for a counterattack. I'm Natasha, a 42-year-old housewife. I used to translate for a company, but now I freelance. My husband John is 45, 3 years older than me. We married when I was 29, and he was a client at my company. The next year, our son Charlie was born, but John, being selfish, hardly helped raise him. Charlie was delicate since birth, frequently in and out of the hospital. I often blamed myself for not giving him a stronger body. But despite his struggles, he bravely faced treatments and held on for 12 years. Things got worse around his 12th birthday. During his first rainy season, constant coughing plagued him. His body rejected food, and his fever wouldn't break. We hurried him to the hospital, tried 4 treatments, but his symptoms barely improved. Mom, sorry for being in the hospital again. No need to apologize. You'll get better, right? Yeah, I'll do my best. With a weak smile, Charlie spoke. Tears welled up in me, but I held them back, not wanting to show weakness in front of him. After Charlie finally dozed off, I called John, but no matter how many times I dialed, he didn't answer. Thinking he might be in a meeting, I switched to messaging. John replied the next morning. Seeing his message, I called him immediately, and this time he answered right away. What's up so early? Don't give me that. Why won't you come? Charlie's fighting so hard. Well, my presence won't cure him, right? And by the way, the hospital bills must be adding up. Tell the doctor to bill him quickly. What? How can you say that? Can't hear you. I'm off to work. Wait. John hung up without listening. He had always been indifferent toward Charlie, but this level of cruelty was new. I gripped my phone, shaking with anger. Even as the rainy season gave way to summer, Charlie's health didn't improve. Doctors doubted he'd make it to winter, so I scaled back my work to be with him as much as I could. Mom, you've been with me all day lately. Is your work okay? It's fine. I'm handling everything from home, so don't worry, if you say so. Charlie didn't seem convinced. He probably thought my work had slowed down because of him. After that chat, to spare him stress, I started bringing my laptop and working right in front of him. Charlie loved books and spent most of his days reading. He also enjoyed studying and would join the hospital school when he felt up to it. I wanted to let him do anything he wished, but John wasn't happy about it. Not only did he avoid visiting Charlie, but he also complained constantly at home. Hey, is that kid still not discharged? Staying in a private room, huh? What a waste of money. How can you say that when your son is fighting so hard? Why don't you visit him for once? I'm busy, okay? You visiting him is enough. John's attitude never changed, and he never visited Charlie in the hospital, despite being his father. I knew Charlie must be lonely, but I understood that forcing John to visit against his will wouldn't help, so I didn't push it further. By now, John often came home late, smelling of alcohol. He claimed it was for client entertaining, but lipstick on laundered shirts and motel receipts hinted at an affair. He had no time for Charlie, but made time for another woman. My love for John had faded, but I hesitated to divorce him, fearing it would upset Charlie. Despite my feelings, I endured it. Meanwhile, Charlie's health deteriorated. Summoned by his doctor, I received shocking news. I'm sorry, but he only has about a month left. What? Doctor, can't you do anything? As tears streamed down my face, The doctor assured me, "We'll do our best until the very end." For the next half month, we continued treatment, consulting with the doctor. However, Charlie's condition continued to weaken. Am I going to be gone soon? What are you saying? There's so much more you want to do, right? I encouraged him with those words, but privately cried away from his sight. When the doctor finally declared further treatment futile, I decided to bring Charlie home for his final moments. Are we going home? Yes, the doctor said. A change of scenery for a few days would be good. Yay. Charlie's weak yet childlike response made me fight back tears. I informed John, but all he said was "etch" and left the house. This man is beyond redemption. I had completely lost hope in him. The discharge was set for the next evening, so I busied myself with preparations and paperwork. While packing Charlie's belongings, he suddenly asked me, "Mom, do you love Dad?" Taken aback by the sudden question, I stopped what I was doing. Charlie continued without waiting for my response. "Dad doesn't seem interested in me or you, so if you don't love Dad, I want you to divorce and live your life." Charlie must have sensed that things weren't going well between John and me, but as a parent, I couldn't let him worry about us until the end. I quickly put on a smile and replied, "What are you talking about? I love your dad, and he cares about us too. He's just too busy to visit, so don't worry, okay?" But okay. Charlie didn't seem convinced, but he dropped the matter. After that, he fell asleep, and I breathed a sigh of relief. 2 days later, Charlie passed away at home with me by his side. John never showed up till the end, and I stayed by Charlie's side, holding his hand. "Charlie, Charlie," I wailed, holding onto his cooling body, reminiscing about every moment since he entered my life. The doctor and a nurse who had been by our side since Charlie's youth joined us in mourning and explained the next steps. One of them handed me a letter from Charlie's bag. "This is from Charlie," he said, "to give it to you if anything happened." I received the letter from Charlie, expressing gratitude to the doctor and the nurse. Alone without John's assistance while Charlie battled his illness, I could only feel thankful for those who supported us during this challenging time. After they departed, I opened the letter beside Charlie. Its contents surprised me. What is this? Charlie's letter not only conveyed his gratitude, but also revealed something startling. Even as the funeral director discussed arrangements, I found my mind consumed by the letter's contents. Despite this, for Charlie's sake, I had to decide on the details, planning a modest and homey funeral. Then, the day before the funeral, John finally appeared, still smelling of alcohol. Alone, I had no energy left to confront him. John, noticing my exhaustion, casually remarked, "You aged," as he pulled out more alcohol from the fridge to drink. "Tomorrow is Charlie's funeral. Where have you been? I told you I was at work. What's with all these complaints? Why did I marry such a man? No, without him, I wouldn't have met Charlie." My mind was in turmoil. Charlie is no longer with us. Oh yeah, that's right. His attitude, as if Charlie was some distant relative, filled me with simmering anger. But arguing with him was pointless. So I decided to focus on the funeral arrangements for the next day. Good fortune for me, no more child-rearing expenses. Let's get divorced. What? I couldn't conceal my shock when John suddenly uttered this during the funeral preparations. I knew he was selfish, but this was too much. There's a woman I want to marry, but she doesn't want kids. So with Charlie alive, the child support and medical expenses would drain my money. Ah, what a relief! How terrible I felt the chill run through me that such a man was Charlie's father. As my mind cleared, my anger surged. Fine, I agree to the divorce. All right then, I'll take the house. Get out as soon as you can. Just wait until after the funeral. Is that okay? John left on the date of the funeral. I read Charlie's will. John turned pale, and relatives glared at him with fierce expressions. Now it was time for my counterattack. The will, penned by Charlie, exposed John's affair. Until I read the will at the funeral, John had been playing the role of a grieving father, loudly crying. How could there be such a letter? No, it's not true. It's a prank, right, Natasha? I felt sorry for not visiting because of work, but this is too much. John tried to deny it, appearing pathetic. I silently took out an envelope from my bag and thrust photos in front of John. What? You took pictures? Disturbed by being caught in a photo, like being seen with the woman, arm in arm within this picture. Ah, no. As John stumbled over his words, his face still pale, I smiled sweetly and asked the relatives to pass around a few photos. Whispers of disgust and small cries of shock arose from all around. Despicable, not visiting his frail son, but with this woman in such a scandalous manner. The glares at John intensified, and he slumped down in his seat. I then presented John with the divorce papers. He looked up at me in shock, his voice cracking as if he was about to cry. You didn't pay attention to me because you were always nursing him. It was just a fling. Forgive me, I don't want a divorce. Not paying attention? You're not a child. I repeatedly asked you to help me nurse him, but you always ran away claiming work as an excuse. But nursing is dirty. As soon as John said that, he disappeared from my view, and when I looked down, he was crawling on the floor, with my father-in-law standing over him, breathing heavily. You, what do you mean nursing your own son is dirty? Enough with the jokes. A parent who doesn't care for their child isn't a parent at all. You're the lowest of the low. My in-laws had always adored Charlie. They celebrated every hospital discharge with a meal, bought Charlie his favorite things, and never missed a visit. They had been covering for John, believing his excuses about being busy at work, never imagining their son could be such a disgrace. Tears streamed down their faces as they glared at John, who sat in disbelief, clutching his cheek where he'd been struck. Natasha, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. If we knew he was such a man, we would have encouraged you to divorce him sooner. We are truly sorry. They began to bow deeply, and I hurried to lift them up. It wasn't their fault. Charlie loved his grandparents, and their presence was one reason I hadn't divorced John. You guys are not to blame. Look, Charlie's letter says thank you and stay healthy. Charlie and I both love you very much, Natasha. Thank you, sorry, Charlie. My mother-in-law hugged me, sobbing quietly. My father-in-law was also crying, apologizing to me. John, finally coming to his senses, stood up and pointed at me, yelling, "Don't be ridiculous. She's just an old lady who couldn't even take care of her husband, a failure of a wife." As my father-in-law lunged towards John, I stepped in front of him. John looked at me with a fearful yet defiant glare. What, you got something to say? Not really. This is reality. No one here is on your side. And make sure to pay back the money you've borrowed from many people, haven't you? How do you know about that? At my words, relatives who had lent John money began murmuring after reading Charlie's letter. I had informed the relatives about John's extravagant spending on a woman from a nightclub who enjoyed luxury items and overseas trips. John, funding all of it, could never afford such a lifestyle on his salary alone. Realizing this, I checked if anyone had lent him money, and to my surprise, it wasn't just John's relatives, but mine as well. Under the guise of Charlie's medical expenses, while I had initially informed them just to thank and promise repayment, with the current situation, they realized John had used the money not for Charlie, but for his affair. Don't play games with me. I lent that money thinking it was for Charlie. Give me back my $20,000 right now. Same here, I want my $40,000 back. These words triggered a cascade of demands from various relatives for the money they had lent. John looked around, his face turning paler with each claim. Then he turned to me, smiling weakly. Natasha, we're a couple, right? You'll help me, won't you? What? Are you serious? You didn't help with nursing, didn't contribute to the medical expenses, or even the living expenses, and instead borrowed from everyone for your own selfish needs. Unbelievable. Why would I help you? Don't say things like that with a pathetic voice. John slumped back down, seemingly out of energy to retort. I looked down at him, ready to deliver the final blow, and called to the entrance, "Cheryl, please come in." "Cheryl? Why is she here?" John's face was a picture of sheer panic as he stared at the entrance. The woman named Cheryl walked towards me hesitantly. She looked plain with light makeup, a stark contrast to the woman in the photos. I invited her on Charlie's last day. She was with you, right? I thought it would be nice if she could attend the funeral. I'm sorry about this. Save it. No need for such superficial words. Cheryl closed her mouth tightly at my response, her face as pale as John's. I handed her some documents. I called you here today to sign these. Please read them carefully and sign. $100,000. I can't pay that. It's impossible. It's not for you to decide whether you can pay or not. Cheryl pleaded with me through her eyes, but I wasn't ready to let her off the hook easily. John, trembling, positioned himself between Cheryl and me. What now? It's my fault, so please forgive Cheryl. Demanding $100,000 from her is just too cruel. Why should I? I'm merely asking for compensation for the affair. John raised his eyebrows and let out a heavy sigh, inwardly screaming that I'm the one who wants to sigh. I waited for John's next words. That's because Cheryl is fragile, unlike you. How do you expect her to earn $100,000? How cruel can you be, John? Cheryl clung to John's back, both seemingly lost in each other. The icy stares weren't only from me. The relatives were ready to voice their disapproval. But I decided to add fuel to the fire. Cheryl, your son is hospitalized, right? Son. Cheryl flinched. I continued, he's 12, just like Charlie was always in the hospital. Your ex-husband took custody, right? Tough with all the hospital and treatment costs, not to mention the bed fees. You must be getting quite a demand for child support, aren't you? How? How do you know that? Cheryl looked at me as if she'd seen a ghost. John was frozen in shock. I pulled out some documents from my bag and handed them to John. He shakily read them, then suddenly pushed Cheryl away. Hey, what's this? Divorced with a kid? You never told me. Didn't you say the money was for your family living far away? I didn't lie. My son. Son is my family. So I've been with a used woman. Where's the true love you were after? My money? You were only after my body. Cheryl threw her shoe at John, enraged. John lunged at her, and they started brawling like children, but fortunately, a security guard intervened. I approached the disheveled pair with a smile. John, please sign the divorce papers and arrange for the alimony. Cheryl, I won't reduce your compensation by a single cent. John, what's your ex-husband said something about your affairs being a sickness that can't be cured. Seems like you have a few partners, so with that kind of leeway, expect enforced payments for the child support, treatment costs, and alimony. That's impossible. John hung his head, speechless, and Cheryl was led away by security, her shoulders slumped in defeat. I apologized to each relative for the disturbance, and they comforted me, bringing me to tears. After that, my divorce from John was finalized. We also agreed on the amount of alimony he had to pay, just as I had requested. This incident infuriated his parents tremendously. Moreover, the extended family was outraged to discover they had been deceived too. Giving him the cold shoulder, of course, he was asked to return the money he embezzled, and it seems like he borrowed it from some shady sources. To repay the debt, he's been working tirelessly with multiple jobs, but the repayment is so huge that he's rumored to have nothing left for living expenses. Eventually, unable to keep up with the ballooning interest, last month he was taken away by some intimidating guys. His parents don't even intend to file a missing person report, so while I hope he's safe, I can't help but wish he suffers unimaginable pain. As for Cheryl, all the men she dated found out about her affairs and the child she had. Cutting off all financial support at 30, she's considered old for her line of work, struggling to attract clients, and eventually had to turn to her parents. She paid the alimony in one lump sum. However, she's since been sent to work on a farm on some island, with her wages going directly to her parents for debt repayment. As for me, I moved with Charlie's memorial tablet. I bought a house near the ocean, something Charlie always wanted, and now live there alone with the cat he wished for. I look forward to the times when my in-laws visit, and we reminisce about Charlie. Another letter from Charlie arrived for me. In it, he wrote in slightly blurred script about his gratitude. Apologies for leaving for heaven first, and his wish to be my child again in another life. The letter ended with, "Mom, stay true to yourself, stay healthy, and live a long life," inspiring me to live my life for Charlie. Despite the sadness of not seeing my beloved child grow up, I'm living each day to the fullest.